Divorce happens. In fact, it happens to almost 50% of first marriages. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Divorce Happens, a podcast to educate, inspire, support, and yes, make you laugh through divorce and beyond so that you can start fresh on the next phase of your journey. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh.
You get divorced. You get divorced.
Getting divorced?
I'm getting a divorce.
You're getting a divorce.
Because she's getting a divorce.
So what if I get divorced?
Hello. Welcome back to Divorce Happens, the show where we support you before, during, and after divorce with education, inspiration, and a little bit of laughter because, as you know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. And we're here today for it. I'm very excited about this convo with Amy. Amy, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Amy Polacko. I'm a divorce coach and journalist. I've been divorced not once, but twice. So I've learned a lot along the way, made a ton of mistakes, and am devoting my life to helping women become the CEO of their own divorce, which I know you know is important, Olivia. I love what you do. And yes, we have to laugh along the way to stay sane.
Yes. So I don't think we've talked about this yet on the podcast. And so I'm psyched to kind of launch this conversation with you, Amy. But Belle Burden has the book Strangers, which has swept the nation of divorce
Right here.
and beyond. Yep. And there's you've done a lot of writing about this and talking about this. And I would love to hear, kind of your opinion on why this book really resonated with women.
Well, I think she felt in many ways like I did, though I was not, in her exact situation, of course. We did everything right. Weren't we building a family that we thought was the Norman Rockwell family? Didn't we have the values and the loyalty and the trust and the commitment and taking one for the team? In her case, because she stayed home while her husband kept building his career and eventually got into hedge funds, which were of course, very lucrative. And, they had a house on Martha's Vineyard in Manhattan and this idyllic family, right?
Yep.
And then she had the rug pulled out from under her. And we hear that all the time when women call us, right? And could be men too, but
Yep.
a lot of times it's women. And I think what she exposed is the vulnerability financially when you become a stay-at-home mom. This is really, really important. You think, and I had an attorney quoted in my article in The Guardian about this, everything's going great when you're in your 30s, right? But then when divorce hits, you realize you gave up so much and it's not always fair.
No, it's not. So what do we do, Amy, in this situation? What is this plan that we can kind of make if we need to figure out a way out of our marriage?
Well, I am a big believer that before you tell him, you need a quiet divorce plan, right? I mean, in Belle Burden's case, her husband was the one who was having an affair with someone and wanted out of the marriage. But in about 70% of divorces in our country, as you know, it's women who file, right? So we see this arduous back and forth and deliberation and feeling guilt over the kids and fear over money, but still this gut feeling that something is not right here and I need to leave this to save myself and in some cases to save my children and give them a better role model or example of a loving relationship, right? So I think there are many things you can do ahead of time. I always ask women when they come to me, have you mentioned the D word to him, right? First of all, how did he react? That tells me a lot about him and I want to get to know him. Even though that sounds weird, I definitely do because I think it's strategic in planning moving forward. But there are so many things you can do. And I think women fall into this trap, Olivia, of being the nice girl. We want to keep things calm. We want a divorce to be amicable. I'm not saying you shouldn't want that, but you also have to protect yourself. So I'm constantly telling my coaching clients, we're going to plan for the worst and work toward the best. It's not going to hurt you to do this. You're not manipulative. You're not evil because you're looking out for yourself, right? And we can get into the specifics of what I think they should do, right?
Yep. Yeah, I would love that. So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, super overwhelmed. Like, where do I even get started? I mean, I think about every day I get women who ask me, like, how do I do this, right? What would you say, Amy, if somebody's listening to this in, a short period of time that they could start this plan?
Well, first of all, don't announce the divorce, right? Don't go rushing to your partner. That can backfire. I think you've got to build a team. And I became a divorce coach because I didn't have that buddy, that guy that was helping me. So I made all sorts of mistakes we don't even have time to get into today, right? That haunt me to this day, that are in my agreement or not in my agreement,
Yeah.
that I still have to live with, right? But I think you can start gathering your financial documents, tax returns, bank statements, retirement accounts, insurance policies, credit card statements, business records. I'm dealing a lot with women experiencing financial abuse, and they might say, well, he controls everything. And in this digital age, we know she can't try to break into these accounts. He's going to get all these alerts. And I say, you actually know more than you think you know, because in every divorce, no matter what process you choose, no matter what state you're in, everybody's got to fill out a financial statement, right? So when he produces his and you take a look at it and say, this doesn't add up. I know he had a Fidelity retirement account from that old job. I know there was an account at Webster Bank. I know he got this inheritance. Where is that money, right? So
Yep.
jotting down in a notebook, even these little disparate little pieces of information can be extremely helpful, right? In discovery when your attorney can ask for those records. And there's a lot more, but do you want to chime in on this?
No, I agree with you. I always tell people it's what you don't know that's just as important as what you do know.
Exactly. And, you do have to be aware that divorce changes things. There's a quote from one of the Gabor sisters who was married many and divorced many times. You never know a man until you divorce him.
Yep.
I hear often women say, well, he's always going to take care of me. He's never going to do anything like that. Just wait until we start talking about what he may consider his money. Things
Yeah.
can change. So you
Yeah.
really have to protect yourself. If
Yeah.
there's a joint account, do you think about withdrawing money so you have money for an attorney? Do you think about protecting some of the assets that you have? And also being really careful what you say and don't say. We see in custody situations all the time where the tables can be turned. A woman can be vilified and demonized as keeping him from their children
Yeah.
when she just basically said, no, you can't have him Saturday night.
Right.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely, Amy. Yeah. Totally. All of that. I mean, I was just doing some writing yesterday about how we want so badly to say when you walk down the aisle with somebody that you know them and you don't. You just don't,
Mhm.
because you don't know what life is going to throw at you and how the person's going to respond. You don't know how you're going to respond to things. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, and I remind people of that all the time, especially the women that are like, well, I don't think I need a divorce coach yet. And I say, go talk to Amy, because you don't know when that stuff's going to hit the fan, right? So it's important to have them in the back pocket.
Yeah, let's talk about that because, I was there too. I certainly empathize with that. You are really stressed out financially, usually, right? So you think, oh my gosh, well, I know I need an attorney, but I don't really need a financial person. I don't really need a divorce coach, right? That type of thing. And the reality is, I recommend that my clients have therapists too, because we do two totally different things. I
Uh-huh.
always say, not that we don't get into emotions in coaching, but it's more strategic. Like, you're
Yeah.
leaving every session with a plan. But I think the biggest misconception people have is that a divorce coach costs more money when it actually saves you tens of thousands, in some
Yep.
cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the more prepared you can be, the best strategy you have, the more you're going to save on those legal bills, right? And it's really a smart decision. Same with a financial advisor,
Yes.
because something could be sold to you as a great settlement plan and proposal, but when you bring it to a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst, they say, wait a minute, you're absorbing all the tax burden here.
Yep.
You no, don't sign this, right?
Yep.
So I think it's really, really important that you don't know everything. You don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. Um, Before we let you go, what is something you can emotionally do for yourself to prepare quietly for this time?
I am a big fan of journaling. I mean, yes, I'm a writer, and writing and publishing in different outlets has been part of my healing process. I find it very cathartic. You can choose, what works for you. But I think putting something down in writing validates your own feelings, what you've experienced, right? In many of these cases, you're probably being gaslit. You're being told you're imagining things. You're being told you're too emotional. And I think when you see it there on the paper and years later, go back and read it and see how far that came. I just wrote a piece about that too, about how where I was crying in that moment of crisis when a friend was giving me advice, and now I'm that person, right?
Yep.
So you will, just like I have and Olivia, you have, right?
Yeah.
Look back and be proud of the person who had the courage to get out, even if it's just putting one little toe out
Mm.
first, right? And taking that step for yourself. So I think getting away, having quiet time by yourself, even if you have to tell, I am a Christian woman, but a little white lie to, saying I've got to run an errand and you go to
Yeah.
the park with your journal.
Yeah, I
You
love that.
have to protect yourself for you. And if you have children, for your kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Amy, if somebody's listening and they're like, I'm ready to work with a divorce coach or I don't know how to get started, I know this is a silly question, but like, what do you say to a divorce coach when you want to inquire about their services?
Well, I think, I do a free 15-minute consultation, but I often recommend the intro action session I have, which is 1 hour, where, I can get to know a little of the background. And so often women say, I don't even know where to begin, right? There's so much. And
Yep.
so, a good coach is going to guide you, right? To get some of the bare bones of what's going on, I always ask, what's your biggest crisis right now? If we only have an
Mm.
hour, I want you to leave this hour feeling like, okay, I have an answer to that, right? I know what I'm going to do next. So I think don't stress out too much about having anything prepared. I think that a good coach is going to make sure you get the most out of your time. And with me, if you do that hour, you can then apply that to other coaching
Mm.
packages, which many women do. And sometimes they need to digest what we talked about, right?
Yeah.
And figure things out. Often I'll hear from somebody a year or 2 years later, like,
Yep.
okay, now the straw has finally broken the camel's back. Like, I'm
Yeah.
ready. So
Yeah.
I never push anyone, as I'm sure you don't either.
Nope.
Everyone is on their own journey, and I respect that and honor that.
Yeah. Yeah. We also see the same thing. We have people coming back to us, years later, and they're like, oh, now I'm ready for this expert, or now I'm ready for the resources. And yeah, I mean, the average woman takes 2 years, right, to consider divorce before she even opens her mouth about it. So,
Right, and if you're in a abusive situation, it takes on average 7 times before you
yep.
leave. Like, I left and went back. I even had a divorce proceeding going and went back. So, there is no judgment here. I love what you do. You are like this soft spot for people to land, and I know our hearts have led both
Yeah.
of us and your sister too to the work that we do. So, I think more and more women, thanks in a large part to you and Fresh Starts Registry, are learning more about the support network and the first step, because I beat that drum constantly. Do not rush out and hire a shark attorney because you posted something on Facebook and people started
Oh, yeah.
commenting, or
Yep.
your friend said, you got to get this guy.
Oh, yeah.
He destroyed this person. Like, it's
Yep.
not always the best choice.
No. Can you tell us where some of your recent work is about strangers and about the things that you write about?
Sure. I wrote an opinion piece for The Guardian entitled Bell Burden Should Have Known, the more money, the more brutal the divorce. But those things apply to not just high net worth cases. It's really applies to a lot of high conflict people. I did a more fun piece for The Guardian called FU Rings that was about women refashioning their jewelry. And I guess I did one in Newsweek about how more women are staying single after divorce, which is
Mm.
something I think we're seeing nationally.
Yep.
So, I co-authored a book, Framed, about women in the family court system, which is a warning and also a validation for women that I highly recommend. Yeah, and I'm going to continue to keep writing as you are.
I hope so. Well, we'll put all the links to this stuff in the show notes. Amy, we appreciate you and your honesty and your heart and your passion. Thank you so much for all the work you do.
Thank you, Olivia. Right back at you.
Divorce Happens is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the only divorce registry platform for everything you need to begin again, including home items, hype team, and everything in between. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh. We're here to support you before, during, and after divorce. Head to freshstartsregistry.com for more info.